term, I think we are entering into this super cycle where the beverages and the soft drinks within that has actually been gaining significantly ahead of the rest of the FMCG. Every few years, we see summers which have a lot of rains. And this was one of those summers where we were challenged. But the work that we have started to do around recruiting more consumers, getting into more households, being present in more stores, actually gives us an edge. And that is how we continue to grow even through a very difficult summer. And as we get into out of summer and these months now, the journey becomes easier, yes.
But you've still managed to do a double-digit volume in the last few months, and I'm guessing it's likely to pick up with World Cup, etc. lined up?
Absolutely. I think as Sundeep said, yes, I think there was a little bit of a challenge in, I would say, 1 or 2 months. But we still are on track to meet all our targets for this year.
And what are those targets?
They're pretty good targets, pretty strong targets, because India is obviously considered as one of the most important, I would say, growth markets around the world. So I think the targets are pretty strong, but I think we feel very confident that we'll be okay on those. But yes, as I said, I think the momentum is very good. And as we head into Q3 and Q4, I think we have the interesting tailwinds of both the World Cup, but also a lot of festivals going on.
Right.
And I think over the last 2 years, I think what we have been trying to do, ensure that we are not just seen by consumers as summer products, but products that can be enjoyed throughout the year. And clearly we can see that the seasonality which used to be there, I think that's flattening out in a very encouraging way.
So let me build on that. So if I look at what's happening within the Indian consumer space, historically we have for long been associating packaged beverages with summer, with heat.
Yeah.
And the reality of Indian consumer was most of our celebrations and festivals were in the second half. And festivals are the time for consumption. They're the time for celebration.
And coming together.
Beverages have to be part of that and coming together. Absolutely. And that is what we have repositioned on how do we participate to celebrate all the different festivals of India. And this year is truly special with the World Cup, with the festivals coming along and a longer extended time for the festivities. So absolutely.
So I'm guessing double-digit volume growth for the full year? Is that a realistic target?
Absolutely.
Okay, fair to say. But since we're talking about World Cup, and Coca-Cola has been synonymous with those, big, momentous ads, right? What should we, look forward to when it comes to the World Cup? Like, taste the thunder and thanda matlab Coca-Cola. Those have become those taglines that you always associate the product with. What more is lined up with the World Cup coming in?
So 2 or 3 things. I think first, as you rightly said, I think sports and sports events are a part of our DNA, because I think they give very strong anchors to activate not just consumers, but also all our key customers, traditional trade, modern trade, both, and also have partnerships with our bottlers. So I think it's a very nice ecosystem it means to be a part of. And whether it's the FIFA World Cup or Olympics, or the FIFA Women's World Cup that's being activated in some parts around the world, the ICC is going to be a big event for us. Happens to be the second largest sporting event in the world. So it is important for us, but also in markets like Pakistan, Bangladesh, South Africa. So you can expect to see a lot of interesting activation. I think, to be very honest, what used to happen, 10 years ago, is that you probably had one nice, big, iconic, I would say, television commercial. And that's over. And we have been speaking about it for in a lot of interactions. I think as you move away from a TVC heavy plan to a wholly integrated plan, which will have a lot of work around the shopper marketing stuff, digital, on-ground activation, experiential. So it's going to be a very different approach. And I think that's the way to go around it. So hopefully at the end of the day, after doing all of this, we still have to drive the business.
Yeah.
So there has to be a very clear ROI, which we feel okay about, but let's see.
But Sundeep, just coming back to the point that we were discussing regarding a bit of a summer blip that we saw perhaps, are you seeing any change in consumer trends in terms of, let's say, down trading or looking at different set of products? Is there any other geography in terms of rural versus urban? Do you see a big distinction in terms of the consumption trends?
So thank you. One of the things that we have been driving is how do we make sure that we don't look India as one composite, but make sure that we are winning in every India that we operate in, which is where the generic models of urban or rural actually gets broken down much deeper
Okay.
in the way we started to operate. And that is what is happening. Again, we don't operate like the typical automobile company where there's a once a year pricing. We have a philosophy in beverages which we call BPPC, which is brand, package, price, and the channel. And a combination of all those four determine what should be the pricing. There would always be certain price points which are more memory carrying for consumers. A 20 rupee single serve package would always be there. But there are a range of packages and a range of brands which we manage to make sure that the consumers are getting a beverage offering at the right occasion, in the right channel, in the right brand. And that is how we make sure that we are addressing the needs and the choices for each of the consumers. So no down trading. There would, of course, be some promotions. There would, of course, be some premiumization, and both of them have to go simultaneously.
Yes, there was a blip, but we saw one of our highest market share gains, I think, in the last 4 to 5 years, probably more than that in this quarter. And secondly, one of the key metrics we are all working towards is how to increase your household penetration. And I think even though the summer was not very hot in a lot of parts of the country, you still saw the household penetration number going up, which again is a very positive sign because it actually clearly shows that the consumer is now more willing to accept the category as a part of their everyday need. And I think that's a very important metric we see to see if that the long-term sustainable growth is actually feasible or not.
But since we have addressed the demand side of things, let me talk about the supply side a bit as well. Last couple of years were a bit challenging, right? Whether you call it on account of inflation, supply side disruption, etc. How are things on the ground now with respect to how the raw material pricing is, trending to be, and with respect to supply disruptions, glass, etc. Is everything in place?
So with every challenge, there is always this opportunity. So we had the challenge with COVID and, supply constraints, started off with China, spread around the world. Of course, we got impacted. But at the same time, the consumers also were looking for comfort. And soft drinks give you a very, very low price entry for getting that comfort. Also, the safety of brands, the promise of big brands like Coca-Cola always brings the consumer back. So we had a challenge and we had an opportunity, and how we started to bridge those two. From a supply side, we used to invest an average of 2 to 5 new lines every year. That has suddenly expanded to 17 lines last year. And this year we'll be going with 35 new lines. So this is a journey, not a one-off, but a journey as we become better in terms of how are we addressing those choices with the consumers and making ourselves even more and more relevant, like Arnab was talking about.
Just wanted to talk about the other strategic initiatives that Coca-Cola has also been undertaking, and one of such was the acquisition of Thrive. Talk to me about the rationale behind that, because that seemed a bit off the usual bread and butter, if I can call it that.
So Thrive is actually an acquisition which is very, very strategic. We took a small 15% stake in there. What Thrive does is it has already reached a 12,000 E&D network. These are the stores which needs the digital capability to make themselves more and more relevant in this new era. Our partnership is actually going to bring together the requirement for millions of eating and drinking stores, HoReCa stores around the country, with expanding their capabilities with the digital and our relationship. So it's a three-way win-win for our customers, for our partners, Thrive, as well as Coca-Cola. And that's the idea for taking a small strategic stake in a capability builder like Thrive, and that's going to continue to expand.